right, so today on New Business Ideas, we are here with Chris Knudsen, entrepreneur and CMO. What two titles would you call yourself? I'd call you a founder first. You've done 5-6 startups.
Yeah.
And then second, I would say when you have had jobs in an enterprise, you're typically the CMO.
Yeah, I've acted in the marketing role mostly, although I've held VP of sales roles and business development roles before. I'd say especially because the business that I own now is a consultancy that specializes in e-commerce marketing. So working with companies that are trying to figure out how to sell their stuff online and do it more effectively. Usually I'm working with those companies in a outsourced CMO type of an arrangement. So yeah, I would say the marketing side of it, specifically even to e-commerce, is mainly where I've been in the last several years.
Got it. When I first met you, you were the CMO of SEO.com.
Yep.
Most recently, prior to what you're doing now with Learning Dynamics and 4 Weeks to Read, do you want to explain what that is?
They're just one of my clients. Yeah, it's a children's reading program, but I have other clients I work with too. Smile Love is a client of mine. It's a great company in Salt Lake City that's in they're in that very competitive direct-to-consumer teeth aligner space right now, that Smile Direct Club that just went public. It's kind of the 800-pound gorilla, and we're working with those guys right now to give them what I would call a purple treatment to their business to help them really explode and take it to the next level.
All right. Are you ready for your new business idea that you're ready to share with us?
Sure.
Can we have a drum roll? Now, this is like a legitimate idea, right?
Yeah, this is actually an idea that's kind of born out of several conversations I've had recently.
Okay. How long have you been incubating on this idea for?
I have like 12 hours.
12 hours?
Like I literally just thought of it, and I'm not going to go do it either. Somebody else goes and does it because I don't want the overhead mess of this business.
Okay.
So every business has a downside, right? This business has one too. But the thing that I've realized about e-commerce businesses in general is they're very bad at talking to customers and getting them to buy or purchase outside of the buy flow of a website. Does that make sense? So a lot of they don't want you to call them. Okay. But if you're a mattress company and you have $1,000 or $2,000, price point, people want to talk to you. They want to talk to you and they want to know that there's someone that's behind the phone or behind the website or whatever it is. And they want to get their questions answered by a human being before they throw down that amount of money or they finance it. Financing is very popular in e-commerce, especially with large ticket items, right? So I'm seeing a case study in this right now with a client where they didn't have any type of, they have a customer service operation, right? But it's all email. They don't have a phone number up on the site. And we came in and we said, hey, you guys are a $1,500 price point for e-commerce. What if we set up for you a call center and we put the phone number on the website and allowed people to call in, number one. So inbound calls to be able to sell somebody a high price point item on the web. Number two, they're using in their abandoned cart funnel only one channel to recoup the abandoned cart, and that is email, which is very, very popular. Like that's just kind of the way most companies do it. But there's several channels that you can use, and one of those is to take your list of abandoned carts and hand that over to a call center and have those call centers outbound to those people and to get them to buy. Hey, you didn't buy something, you still have a full cart here. Was there a question that we were not able to answer for you on the website, or was there something that happened and there was a reason why you didn't buy? How can I help you get through the purchase, right? I just saw a company employ this model. We helped them get set up. And I think about 15% of their revenue in Black Friday, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, came from this channel of utilizing a call center to allow somebody to either inbound or they were given a list of abandoned carts and they were outbounding to that list. And hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue that they would have never seen came in over the Black Friday promotion, and it was incredible. Like it was an awesome campaign. They're obviously going to keep that going. It's now, I think, up to doing about $30,000 a day. This is $30,000 a day in revenue that they would never have realized is coming through that inbound channel and that outbound abandoned cart effort. So because these companies suck at doing this, right? Go set up a call center. If you know how to sell and you can close people and you can allow them to inbound, have those calls inbound to you, take those orders and do those outbound abandoned cart calls and close people down on deals, and you'll make a big commission. I mean, if you can set up the commission structure correctly with the e-commerce business, you'll make a lot of money off of it.
So how would you set that up? Like, are you looking at customers with an average shopping cart of 1,000 or more, or? Yeah,
there's a price point where it doesn't make sense to do it. Where I don't know where that inflection. I think that inflection point is probably $300.
Okay.
A $300 cart like average order value.
Okay.
But it just depends also on the margin. Because if you have a really high margin product at a lower price than that, you may be able to make it work. It's different for each company. You have to look at it and say, okay, where you have a company that has a very big margin, they're already spending a lot of money on acquisition, you got a $1,500 price point, it's a no-brainer.
So, I mean, the first place you could probably start, even up beyond e-commerce, would be enterprise software. There's a lot of people who have similar type of models.
Yeah, enterprise software companies are usually really good at sales. But there are enterprise software companies that are starting up that are not good at sales. Mm-hmm. So could you have that same model where you could step into a SaaS business and be like, hey, we're really good. We have a really good SDR team, for example, right? So our sales development reps will set appointments for you and do all that type of work. And maybe the CEO out of the gate is the sales guy, right? But he has an SDR team that's sitting there setting up appointments for that CEO. So the CEO is not sitting there going through Salesforce and going through leads all day long and expending a bunch of energy on that type of work. They're just getting appointments set. They're getting on the phone with potential customers and they're closing people.
But like, so an example, this last week I purchased a subscription to Crunchbase. An annual subscription is $328. Maybe they didn't call me because it's a free 1 week trial and I forgot about it. And I was flying back from India. So I was like, oh, I need to cancel this on Friday. But I got here on Thursday, which is India's Friday. And during Thanksgiving dinner, I got dinged for $328.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe they don't want to call in that scenario. But in that scenario, they've got great margins. I mean, technically their margins are probably 80, 90%.
Their margins are huge, right?
And they could come through and do this with that model.
Yeah, I think especially if you employed like an offshore, which you know a lot about this, right? If you employed an offshore call center, Philippines, India, and they're just outbounding to you saying, hey, you had this free trial, we want to make sure we convert you over or whatever. There's actually call centers in those areas, in the India and the Philippines, that are really good at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you do it for e-commerce? So what type of businesses would be a good fit? You say average order value, $300 or more?
Yeah, probably an average order value above $300. Yeah. Okay. For sure. And again, that depends on margin. You got to have a decent margin in there, right? Especially for the abandoned cart piece. The abandoned cart piece, you're really about cost recovery at that point because you've already you got to have a sunk cost in your acquisition costs, right? And Facebook, what we know about like social marketing right now, social commerce is even at like a $100 price point, I mean, your acquisition costs are easily $40, $50. So where are your margins in there, and do they allow you to even be able to utilize those types of channels to acquire customers? You got to look at that, right? That's a big deal.
So who would be the first, what would be the first profile of a type of companies that you'd go after? Mattress companies?
Yeah, mattress companies would be great, right? As a matter of fact, big mattress companies that I know that I've even worked with completely fall down on this. They have a customer service department that's set up and they're doing social response through marketing or those types of things, but they don't know how to put a number on the website and get somebody. Now, okay, so let's say they do put a number on the website. Usually it's just calling into the customer service department. So somebody will call in the customer service department and be like, well, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this mattress? And the customer service person will answer the question and they'll be like, okay, cool, thanks. They hang up the phone.
Okay.
Right. I'm seeing this with a current client right now. This is how their customer service department operated, which is why we changed it. So if you got a customer service concern, you go over to customer service. If you got a sales type question or concern, you go to sales, because the sales department is trained to close deals. Right. And that's what you want. You want them on the phone with somebody who's trained to close that person down and get them in the door as a sell. So going out to those types of companies, I work with a mattress company right now. We had a big call today where they're implementing this model right now. They're going to have it up and running by the end of January, which is pretty fast for something like this. It's middle of December right now. But they see it as a big opportunity because there's not a lot of companies in the mattress space that are employing this model, but they're all knife fighting and gun fighting each other on Facebook, right? So it's like, hey, we've got these massive acquisition costs over there. What if we just said to people, hey, call us? Right. And I think it's a great model. I mean, I'm just seeing it work over and over again. And so e-commerce businesses are just naturally have some type of aversion to that model because they just don't want to talk to their customers.
Okay. What about furniture stores? Good fit? They'd be above 300.
Furniture store meaning retail, or furniture store that has a website?
A retail store that would also have a website.
Okay. So to outbound.
RC Willey, for example.
RC Willey, yeah. I think
Home goods.
Yeah, I would say why not, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be some other examples?
For me, it's really e-commerce, right? It's trying to fix a problem in e-commerce, which is you have limited channels whereby you can market your services, and you're really, really bad at talking to your customer, physically, literally talking to your customer. You don't have the capability of the technology, the know-how. You don't want to hire a sales organization, and I just kind of stick in that vein. Does it work for the insurance guy down the street or the car place, or I don't know, right? I mean, RC Willie, who knows?
What contract do you put together for something like that?
You're going to do a contract that's mainly, I would do the way I would do it. I think a lot of companies, the way I've seen a lot of companies do it, is commission based, right? I do a retainer plus a commission. I'd be like, we have a base cost on services that you have to pay for every month. And then we do a commission rate on outbound versus inbound. The inbound is cheaper because they're calling you, right? You're just putting them in front of a sales guy, and that sales guy has to close them, right? Outbound is different. That's a lot harder.
Okay.
You got to get them on the phone through some mechanism, whether you're directly calling them, you're sending them a text, which there's technology that's there that's awesome for that. Hey, just sending a text out, can I talk to you? Hit the link, makes a phone call, right? That's a higher commission rate to get them to actually get them on the phone and get them closed than if they're than opposed to them just calling you, right? So
what's the perfect win-win contract example though? Like are you going to take a percentage of, obviously it's commission based, you made a sale.
Yeah, I think the win-win is the commission, right? Because you're
going to come in. Would you say there's a $2,500, $5,000, retainer?
Totally depends on the size of the company. Okay. Totally depends on the size of the company. Amazon would be something very different.
Like let's say you were to approach RC Willie though.
Yeah,
they're a very large company. They might. They're not publicly traded, but in theory they could be a small publicly traded.
Yeah, they're owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah. So, and I don't know how many locations they have or what they have in this realm of call centers, but they may already be set up to be able to operate this way, or maybe they've even trained their customer service department to be able to handle these types of inquiries, and they're able to sell, right? I would simply set them up on now. Here's the thing about an RC Willie: they're operating on a much lower margin because it's the furniture space, right? So it would probably be hard to make this work for them and for you. That's where a retainer would come into play here, because you'd be like, hey, I have to pay, or I have to charge you a retainer to make this more worth my time, because I'm not able to charge them much higher commission because you just don't have the margin to pay it, right? So we'll take a lower commission and maybe a better retainer for the call center operation.
Yeah, but what does that look like? What would you pitch?
I don't know. On RC Willie, you put me in a little bit of a tight spot, because I would do a lot of research on this before I ever...
Give me one like Casper. What would you do for Casper?
Casper. Okay, great. So Casper's that's a good one, because I think I know what their margins are.
Because their margins probably are, if it's a $1,000 mattress, 30% is the mattress cost, right?
Yeah.
So the contribution margin would be 60 some odd percent.
Yeah, I would charge those guys a 25% commission.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
off the total purchase price of the item.
Yep. On outbound, right? So that's mainly your abandoned cart. At least 25%. And on the inbound, I'd charge them 10. I'd be like, if you put that phone number and that rings into my call center and my guy picks it up and sells that mattress, I'll charge you 10% on that.
And your retainer would be what?
Probably wouldn't do a retainer on that deal. If I got a deal with Casper, they're large enough that I'd just look at that where I'd just be like, okay, yeah, we can do a straight commission on this.
Okay.
So
now, what's the hiccup? Why are you not doing this idea that you thought of in the last 12
Because
hours?
I don't want to run a call center.
Okay.
And I know call centers so I had a call center that did something like this, and I went to them and I said, hey, you should do this. And they were like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I said, yeah, it's actually a really good idea. And I got them inserted into this other e-commerce business, and they're crushing it right now. They're making a ton of money off this deal. And they're like, this is a great idea. And I'm like, it's a great idea. You go have the headache of employee call center turnover and phone systems and phone bills and tracking and training. And I don't want that headache. Okay. Right. My model is specifically set up so I don't have really employees. Right. So that's not the type of business that I want to run. Although I think that it's a very good business model and idea. And I see a big need for this out in the market right now for e-commerce companies to evolve into this model of really utilizing the phone to get sales. And it's just great to outsource that type of work.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing this business idea in your time.
Yeah.
So I think this is a solid idea.
You like it?
Yeah, I really like it.
You should do it in India.
I should not. You got to focus. I've already got.
I know you.
I've got 2 businesses that are running right now. A third would be a disaster.
I've tried to get you to modify your model a little bit, haven't I? And your response is always, no, that would unfocus me. I can't do that.
Well, this is Chris Knudsen. We'll put his information below. You can spam him on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. Just send me an email or whatever.
Recruit him full time.
Yeah, recruit me for full-time employment. That'll go well.
Okay. Well, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, dude.
All right.